There is a moment, right before an awakening, when life becomes strangely quiet inside you, not silent in the absence of sound, but silent in the way truth begins to rise. And as you hear my voice now, let yourself soften into that inner stillness. Let the breath fall a little deeper. Let your shoulders loosen, because this is not a video you simply watch. This is a moment you enter, a crossing, a remembering. You've been trying for so long, trying to manifest, trying to stay positive, trying to visualize, trying to hold the faith, trying to do everything right. And yet, some part of you feels like every effort pushes the desire a little further away. You try harder, and something inside tightens. You try again, and the distance seems to grow. You're not imagining it, you're not failing, you're not defective. You are simply living in a state that Neville Goddard warned about, a state where effort becomes the signal that you do not have yet. Trying is the quiet confession of separation. Trying is the whisper of "it's not here." Trying is the identity of the one who waits at the door instead of the one who lives inside the house. Maybe you've noticed the emotional exhaustion of this cycle. Those days when you wake up hopeful, ready to manifest with intention, but by afternoon you feel yourself slipping back into doubt. You watch yourself swing between excitement and fear, between "I feel it happening" and "why is nothing changing?" You feel the tension in the chest, the pressure behind the eyes, the weight in the stomach. The body keeps score of the identity you're inhabiting. It knows when it's trying, it knows when it's reaching, it knows when the desire feels far away. And that distance, the emotional, energetic distance, is the very thing that sustains the waiting. There is a hidden pain that almost no one talks about. People work on manifestation not because they believe, but because they secretly fear they don't have. They meditate, affirm, visualize, journal, not from embodiment, but from quiet self-doubt. And every time the mind says, "I need to work on this," the subconscious hears, "I don't have this. This isn't your fault. This is conditioning. This is the old self-image speaking. This is the part of you that was trained to earn everything, to fight for everything, to chase everything. But manifestation doesn't respond to effort. It responds to identity. It responds to what you are, not what you're trying to create. Neville taught that assumption is the creative force, the seed already in bloom. Dr. Joe Dispenza explored it neurologically. Your brain and body don't respond to what you want. They respond to the state you occupy. When you live from the identity of the one who has, neural circuits shift, hormones shift, behavior shifts, perception shifts, possibility shifts. Your energy field becomes coherent. Your direction becomes clear. The door opens, not because you push it, but because you stop touching it with desperation. Trying signals lack, having signals embodiment, and maybe this is the moment where you begin to feel the paradox rising in your body. The harder you try, the further it moves. The more tightly you hold the desire, the more fragile it becomes. The more you chase the outcome, the more the outcome slips into the distance. You've been living in the future of your manifestation instead of the present of it. You've been reaching for the life you want instead of letting it rest inside you. So take a breath, a deeper one this time. Slowly in, slowly out. Let the chest soften. Let the mind unclench. Feel the exhale travel all the way down the spine. Because right here in this quiet, you are beginning the shift that changes everything. This is the moment where the old identity loosens its grip. This is the threshold where trying dissolves. This is where you step into the state of having, not by force, not by technique, but by recognition. You collapse the gap not with effort, but with acceptance. You begin remembering that you and the desire were never separate. This introduction is the opening of a doorway between who you were and the one who already has, between the identity that tries and the identity that embodies, between distance and possession, between longing and ownership. Let yourself cross it softly, because from this point forward, the script will guide you deeper into the truth that has been waiting for years, perhaps your entire life, to be seen. There comes a moment on every spiritual path when the veil lifts just enough for you to see the truth you've been walking past for years. And this chapter is one of those moments. Because trying, the very thing you believed would bring your desire closer, has quietly been holding it at arm's length. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because every effort carries an unspoken message. It isn't mine yet. You feel this message not in the words you say, but in the tension behind your affirmations, in the subtle desperation inside your visualizations, in the way your breath tightens each time you think about your desire. Striving doesn't pull things toward you. Striving confirms the distance. It keeps the dream suspended in a future the mind is always chasing, but never inhabiting. This is where psychology and spirituality hold hands. Self-discrepancy. Theory explains something Neville Goddard said long before science gave it language. When your inner state is built on the belief that you are not yet the person who has, your mind creates a gap between your actual self and your desired self. And your nervous system feels that gap. It tries to close it by pushing, forcing, reaching, trying. But every push becomes evidence that you are still on the outside. Every technique becomes proof of absence. You keep adjusting the mirror instead of changing the face it reflects, and the more intensely you try, the more your subconscious hears the same message repeated over and over. I don't have this. I need to get it. The identity of the one who tries is incompatible with the identity of the one who receives. There is a quiet liberation in realizing this, a soft but irreversible shift. The goal was never to try harder. The goal was to stop performing the subtle rituals of lack, to stop proving your distance, to stop acting as someone who is almost there, nearly ready, waiting for the final sign. What if the only thing you've truly needed is permission to stop? When you release the need to push, you stop reinforcing the absence. When you stop fighting for the desire, you stop confirming it lives somewhere beyond your current state. The moment you stop reaching, you allow the inner space where having begins. The identity of the receiver awakens when effort finally rests. You might begin to notice this in small, quiet moments throughout the day. When you are brushing your teeth, when you are sitting in traffic, when you're preparing breakfast. There are micro instants where you catch yourself slipping back into effort mode. Should I visualize again? Should I focus harder? Should I shift my vibration? These tiny thoughts reveal the old self-image. And right there, in the span of a single breath, you can shift into ownership. You can feel the body soften as it stops chasing the desire and begins inhabiting it. This isn't about pretending. It isn't about fantasizing. It's about stepping into the identity where the desire already belongs to you, where nothing is missing, where the inner signature matches the outer result that is forming. The best way to understand this is through the metaphor already woven into this chapter. Imagine a door that only opens when you stop touching it. The more you push, the more it resists. The more you insist, the heavier it becomes. But the moment you step back, the moment you allow, the moment you release the need to force it open, the door moves effortlessly. This is the nature of manifestation. The universe responds not to pressure but to presence, not to effort but to identity, not to the reaching hand but to the open one. And in that shift, from pushing the door to stepping back, you begin to feel the first true taste of having. There is a subtle ache that lives inside anyone who has ever tried to manifest from a place of longing. It's an ache that doesn't show on the surface, yet it quietly shapes every thought, every reaction, every hope. It is the ache of wanting a new reality, while still inhabiting the personality built from the old one. You can feel this conflict in moments when you desire success, but still move through the world with the internal posture of someone who doubts their own value. You can feel it when you crave love, but still carry the emotional reflexes of someone bracing for rejection. You can feel it when you want abundance, but still look at your life with eyes trained by scarcity. This is the identity split. And until it dissolves, nothing truly shifts on the outside. Psychology calls this self-determination theory, the principle that your identity, not your conscious intention, drives your behavior and results. You cannot act beyond who you believe you are. You cannot receive beyond who you allow yourself to be. When your desires evolve but your inner identity remains tied to an older version of you, manifestation feels slow, frustrating, distant. It's not because the universe is withholding. It's because the self you are inhabiting does not yet match the self who naturally holds what you want. And so you chase, you try, you hope, you affirm. Yet beneath all of it remains the quiet truth. The identity acting is not the identity receiving. There is a gentle but powerful realization waiting here. You have never failed to manifest. You have only tried to manifest from a self-image that couldn't hold the desire. Not because you are unworthy, but because the identity you've been using was crafted in older circumstances, in older wounds, in older narratives. You've been trying to build a new life with the emotional architecture of the past. trying to run new software on an outdated operating system. And the conflict you feel is not resistance from the universe. It is the friction between who you have been and who you are becoming. As this truth begins to settle in your body, a new possibility emerges. Identity is not fixed. Identity is chosen. Identity is rehearsed. When you begin to shift your focus toward the version of you who already has the desire, something changes in the way you breathe, in the way you think, in the way you interpret your day. You start to ask quieter, deeper questions. How does the version of me who already has this think? How do they walk into a room? How do they spend their mornings? How do they speak to themselves? These questions don't push you toward the desire. They reveal the self who naturally contains it. They open the doorway between longing and embodiment. They turn wanting into being. Imagine for a moment an outdated operating system on a device you use every day. You can click, you can type, you can open programs, but nothing runs the way it should. Everything lags. The commands are there, but the system cannot hold them. This is what trying to manifest from your old identity feels like. The intentions are pure, the desire is real, but the internal platform is outdated. And once you update the identity, once you become the self who has, instead of the self who wants, the entire system responds differently. Everything flows, everything aligns, everything receives. In that moment, manifestation becomes natural, not forced, because you are no longer asking life to give you something. You are simply allowing life to reflect who you truly are. Subscribe if you're ready to stop trying and start becoming. Every new video helps you step further into the identity that already has what you desire. Stay connected to your higher state. There is a threshold in manifestation that most people never cross, not because it is complicated, but because it requires a level of honesty with oneself that feels almost sacred. It is the moment you recognize that your outer world is not responding to your affirmations, your visualizations, your rituals, or your techniques. It is responding to the emotional state beneath them, the quiet state you return to when no one is watching. The subtle atmosphere you carry in your chest when you wake up, when you go to bed, when you move through your day. This state, often formed long before your desires emerged, becomes the gravitational field of your life. It pulls experiences toward you, not through logic, but through resonance. You may have noticed this when you speak affirmations with your voice, but your stomach tightens with fear. When you visualize abundance, but your body reacts with old patterns of worry. When you say, "I am worthy," yet a familiar heaviness forms in your chest. Emotional reactions rooted in lack override any mental practice you try to impose on top of them. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because the subconscious speaks the language of feeling, not words. And if the feeling contradicts the statement, the feeling wins every time. This is the physics of the inner state. Reality mirrors the emotional atmosphere you live in, not the affirmations you perform. Neuroscience supports this truth with striking clarity. The brain creates durable neural pathways, not from isolated thoughts, but from the emotional states repeatedly experienced. It is the emotion that teaches the brain what is real. It is the emotion that conditions the body into belief. You may think you are visualizing your future, but the body is reacting to the present state. And if that present state is tension, fear, longing, frustration, or doubt, those reactions become the instructions your nervous system sends out into the field around you. The inner state tells the world what to mirror. It determines the quality of consciousness from which your reality grows. This brings us to one of the most uncomfortable yet liberating revelations of manifestation. You are manifesting from the state before you visualize, not from the visualization itself. The moment right before you close your eyes, the moment you carry your unfiltered emotional truth, that is the state transmitting your signal. If it is a state of lack, the visualization becomes a temporary escape. If it is a state of having, the visualization becomes a natural extension of who you already are. This is why two people can use the same technique with wildly different results. One is broadcasting desire, the other is broadcasting identity. There is a way to shift this that is quieter and more powerful than any technique. It begins with acknowledging the emotional climate you are in, without judgment, without resistance. When you feel the desire rising, instead of rushing to visualize or affirm, you pause and settle into the inner state you want to embody. You allow the feeling of the fulfilled desire to form in your chest before you engage the mind. You let the body soften into having. You let the breath expand around a new truth. This is not about forcing a feeling. It is about remembering a state that already exists within you and letting it lead. To understand this deeply, imagine trying to plant seeds in soil that is dry, hard, and hostile. You can plant the most precious seed, but it cannot take root in an environment that does not support life. Your inner state is the soil. The desire is the seed. When the state is tense, desperate, or rooted in lack, the seed has nowhere to grow. But when the state is nourished, receptive, calm, and aligned with having, creation becomes effortless. The seed doesn't have to fight, it simply becomes, and so do you. There is a quiet fatigue that appears when someone has spent too long manifesting from absence. It's the heaviness you feel when you've done every technique with sincerity, yet nothing shifts, and instead of moving closer, the desire seems to drift further away. This isn't failure. It's the subtle momentum created when the energy of trying reinforces the identity of not having. Each effort carries the same unspoken message, I still need this, and the subconscious takes that message as truth. This momentum builds in the smallest emotional details. You try to visualize, but the feeling underneath is tension. You repeat an affirmation, but the body holds an old reflex of doubt. Without noticing, your system begins to reward longing instead of embodiment. Neuroscience explains this as a dopamine loop. The brain activates around anticipation, not identity. The chase becomes familiar, wanting becomes a habit, and the dream stays tethered to a future you never fully step into. The more you push, the more deeply you anchor yourself in the version of you who is still waiting. Instead of the desire elevating your state, the desire intensifies your sense of lack. The harder you try, the more the old identity tightens its grip. Manifestation slows not because the universe is distant, but because the internal signal being sent is, I am still reaching. Yet everything begins to shift the moment you redirect your inner reward from wanting to being. When you allow yourself to feel the quiet resonance of already having, the body relaxes into a different truth. Effort softens. The nervous system loosens its attachment to the chase. And the desire stops feeling like something ahead of you and begins feeling like something arising from within you. Think of a person running on a treadmill. The movement is intense, but the scenery never changes. Trying from lack works the same way. But the moment you step off, when striving dissolves, you finally enter the path where real movement becomes possible, not through effort, but through identity. There is a quiet hesitation that rises in many people right at the doorway of having. Not because the desire is impossible, but because fully stepping into it feels almost forbidden. A part of you fears that if you assume the desire too deeply, you'll be disappointed. Another part fears being unrealistic, but beneath both fears lies something simpler. The unfamiliarity of embodying what you have spent years longing for. This hesitation creates a subtle blockade. You want the desire, yet you hold back from becoming the one who already has it. Expectation, however, is far more powerful than effort. The Pygmalion effect shows that outcomes bend toward the identity you occupy, not the work you perform. When you shift from hoping to expecting, from wishing to assuming, your entire inner matrix reorganizes itself. Neville Goddard said assumption is not pretending, it is acceptance. And modern neuroscience echoes this. The brain rewires faster through identity than through repetition. What you repeatedly feel becomes the signal your reality mirrors. When you begin to slip into the having state, something unmistakable changes in your body. Your breath deepens, your awareness softens. You stop reaching and instead begin resting in a truth that feels both new and ancient. You start moving through your day with the calm certainty of someone who is already met by life, instead of someone trying to convince life to come closer. You stand differently, you interpret differently, you choose differently, and without forcing anything, your emotional center shifts from longing to ownership. This shift is easier to understand through a simple image. Imagine slipping into a suit tailored perfectly to your body. The moment it touches your skin, your posture changes. Your presence expands. You don't need to force confidence. It emerges naturally because the garment fits the identity you stepped into. The having state works the same way. When you allow yourself to wear the identity of the one who already received, your entire inner and outer world begin responding to the new fit. There is a strange discomfort that emerges when life begins to offer you ease. It's subtle at first, like a soft restlessness beneath the skin. You finally stop pushing, you stop chasing, you stop fighting for every inch of progress, and instead of feeling relief, a part of you feels exposed, almost unsafe. This discomfort isn't a sign that something is wrong. It's the echo of an identity that has been shaped by years of surviving through effort. For many people, struggle became familiar long before they ever encountered ideas of manifestation or inner work. Effort became the language of worthiness. Hardship became the proof of progress, and ease, despite being desired, feels like foreign territory. Attachment theory sheds light on this emotional paradox. When chaos or struggle is normalized early in life, the nervous system begins to mistake it for stability. It becomes the reference point the body returns to, even in adulthood, even in spiritual practice. This is why letting go of effort can feel threatening. It asks you to abandon a pattern that once protected you. It asks you to trust a new kind of safety. It asks you to receive without defending yourself. And receiving without tension often feels more vulnerable than fighting ever did. Yet this vulnerability is not a danger. It is an initiation. The shift from struggle to ease is not merely energetic. It is neurological. When you allow yourself moments of profound stillness, the nervous system begins to recalibrate. It learns a new rhythm. It discovers that safety can exist without control, that manifestation can unfold without force, that life can support you without you constantly monitoring every step. In this quiet, the old identity loosens, and the body remembers a different way of being. The best way to understand this is through a simple image. Imagine stepping off a ship after a long journey at sea. Even on solid ground, you still feel the phantom rocking beneath your feet. Your body expects the movement because it has lived with it for so long. The same happens when you leave a life built on effort. The echoes of the old waves remain for a while, but they do not mean the ground is unstable. They mean you are adjusting to steadiness, and with each moment of stillness you allow, the ground beneath you becomes home. There is a belief many people carry quietly, sometimes without realizing it. The belief that manifestation takes time, that the universe needs days, weeks, months to arrange the pieces, that something must happen out there before anything can change in here. But time is not the barrier. Time is only the reflection of the state you live in. The deeper truth, the one Neville hinted at again and again, is that nothing actually takes time. Everything takes alignment. The moment the identity stabilizes, the desire no longer travels toward you. It emerges from you. The idea that time stands between you and your desire creates a hidden blockade. When you believe something must happen in the future, you unconsciously push your desire into that future. You speak to it as if it's not yet here. You behave like someone waiting for proof, and the body responds. Psychology calls this time perception distortion. Your emotional state alters your sense of duration and delays outcomes that could unfold instantly. Longing stretches time. Doubt slows it, expectation accelerates it, embodiment collapses it. This is why the deepest shifts happen when you stop treating your desire as extraordinary and start treating it as normal. When you live as though the result is already part of your natural rhythm, you step into what some call present moment occupancy, the identity that no longer waits, no longer watches, no longer anticipates. It simply is. And in that being, the world responds with sudden clarity. People enter your life at the right moment. Opportunities reveal themselves without effort. Solutions appear without searching. Nothing accelerates manifestation faster than the decision to inhabit the self who already lives the outcome. Imagine standing in a doorway, holding the frame tightly, waiting for life to pull you through. As long as you cling to the door, you block your own passage. But the moment you stop gripping, you walk forward naturally. The desire doesn't travel to you. You step into the space where it already exists, and when that happens, time stops being an obstacle. It becomes irrelevant, because the identity that once needed time is no longer the one steering your life. There is a subtle tension that arises when a desire begins to feel truly close. It's the tension of wanting something deeply while quietly wondering whether you can hold it, sustain it, or live up to it. This inner hesitation often goes unnoticed, yet it shapes the entire manifestation process. You may think you are afraid of failure or rejection, but beneath that lies a more intimate truth. Many people fear receiving because receiving asks them to become someone new. It asks them to step into a level of responsibility their old identity was never trained to carry. This fear does not come from weakness. It comes from an instinctive desire to protect yourself. The psyche resists outcomes it subconsciously believes it cannot maintain. Evolutionary psychology refers to this as parental investment theory. The mind hesitates to accept what it feels unprepared to stabilize. So even when the desire is noble, beautiful, or aligned, the inner self may hold back, not because it doubts the manifestation, but because it doubts its own readiness. A part of you may whisper, "What if I lose it? What if I can't sustain it? What if I am not enough once it arrives?" These questions do not block the desire, they block the identity that would receive it. But when you begin imagining yourself not only receiving the desire but living with it, supporting it, and integrating it into the rhythm of your days, something shifts. You begin to see the desire not as an event, but as a relationship. You grow into the person who can hold it with steadiness. You discover that responsibility is not weight, it is embodiment. The more clearly you feel yourself maintaining the outcome, the safer the desire becomes for your subconscious, and the faster it moves toward you. Think of someone longing for a crown. They admire its beauty, its symbolism, its promise. Yet the moment it is placed upon their head, their posture changes. The weight is real. The presence is undeniable. To wear it, they must become the version of themselves who can stand with that weight gracefully. Manifestation works the same way. You are not merely attracting a desire. You are learning to rise into the identity capable of carrying it. And once you do, receiving becomes natural, even inevitable. There is a quiet exhaustion that builds up in those who spend their days searching for signs, hoping for synchronicities, or waiting for the universe to send a signal of approval. This search, though well-intentioned, reveals an underlying assumption, the belief that the desire is not yet secured. Neville Goddard made this clear. When the end is truly assumed, the bridge of events forms on its own. You do not need to track it, predict it, or monitor it. The one who has does not look for confirmation. The one who has simply lives. When you rely on signs, you unknowingly place your fulfillment in the future. You shift into the identity of someone waiting for validation, rather than someone embodying the outcome. This delays the manifestation, not because life resists you, but because your state keeps postponing the result. The moment you drop the middle, the need for steps, proofs, and signals, your energy gathers into one direction. Your body softens into certainty. Your mind stops negotiating with the unknown and begins trusting its own inner authority. It becomes easier to understand through a simple image. When you enter a destination into a GPS, you don't demand to see every turn in advance. You trust that the path will unfold as you move. Assumption works the same way. Once the end is chosen, the route reveals itself naturally. Your only task is to stand in the destination internally, allowing the middle to rise on its own. There are moments when old thoughts pull you back into the identity that once lived in doubt. These reflexes are not signs of failure. They are simply patterns your mind learned long before you embraced conscious creation. Neuroscience shows that identity reshapes itself through repetition. The more consistently you return to the state of already having, the more your brain reorganizes around that truth. Small internal cues, a breath, a shift in posture, a quiet thought of certainty, begin anchoring you in ownership. Over time, your emotional baseline rises into a new frequency. Like a thermostat returning to its set point, your mind begins settling into having, not longing. Everything you've explored leads to a single, quiet truth. Reality bends to the identity you embody, not the effort you exert. Neville taught it, and modern biology confirms it. Your assumptions shape your world. Manifestation accelerates when you stop proving you lack and begin living as the one who already has. Trying belongs to who you were. Having belongs to who you are becoming. And once the inner shift settles, life follows without resistance.